Hey everyone, Pack here with another forecast discussion on the Spark Service Weather YouTube channel. And today we're going to be discussing the current weather across the United States of America. We've got incredible flooding coming towards California. We've got actually severe weather going on right now in parts of Texas, and a big warm-up we're going to talk about for the eastern coast of the U.S. and some intermountain snows, as you can see here on the National Weather Service current hazards map. All that and more coming right up here in this video. So here on our National Weather Service hazards map, we currently have quite a few advisories and warnings out there today. Plenty of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories. The purples are going to be the advisories, the pinks are the warnings here in the mountains of the Rocky Mountains here in the western U.S. We have a couple winter storm watches out for the Sierras. We have a ton of flash flood watches and flood watches here throughout all of the Central Valley of California, down all the way down to the Mexican coast here. We've got some high wind watches and warnings here in parts of coastal California as well. We've got more high wind and wind advisories here throughout much of western Texas, New Mexico here. Some leftover severe thunderstorm watches, and actually right now as I'm recording this, I do caution this is being recorded at, well, around midnight my time, Eastern time, on February 3rd. So this is going to be uploaded on February 3rd. I'm recording this in the very, very beginning of the day. So currently this is kind of basically the end of February 2nd's weather. We've got a little bit of a severe thunderstorm threat here in parts of Texas, as there was a slight risk in this region. Little severe thunderstorm warning up here near Dallas. Plenty of dense fog advisories after this very foggy week we saw all across the U.S., eastern U.S. We've got still some fog lingering in parts of the north central United States, and a couple more flash flood watches here in parts of Mississippi, and some, with all of the rain we've been seeing, we've got some flood warnings for these river regions here throughout, especially much of the Mississippi Delta near Louisiana and Texas and through Arkansas. So that is it for the current hazards and the weather right now. We're looking at an incredible system. As I said, this is February 3rd, early in the morning, and right now there is an incredible system all throughout the western coast of the United States. Tons of moisture here. As you can see, these blues, greens here, these representing some low to mid-level cloud cover here. Even some of these yellows here are some convective elements throughout the this MCS, which I'll show you on radar in a moment. Here for parts of Texas, as that severe thunderstorm watch and some of those warnings kind of continue throughout the night. It should be expected to kind of end at this point in time. And then tomorrow, when this video does get uploaded, there shouldn't be much severe weather, at least in northern parts of Texas. But not much weather going on across the eastern U.S. So today, however, we did see some pretty incredible tornado reports and wind reports and just overall severe storm reports for parts of Texas and even a little bit of Oklahoma here, as the risk wasn't particularly high today, but I do remember seeing some pretty impressive photogenic tornadoes out there in this part of Texas where these reports were. Obviously, the red is going to be tornado, wind reports are blue, and the hail reports are green here. No significant reports of any kind, however, still of severe threshold. So this is the outlook that did that, and it just goes to show, I mean, we had a slight risk, but the tornado threat was, I mean, a rather large but not impressive 2% risk, and just goes to show that you got to take any of these risks seriously when you're in them. You know, the chances for tornadoes is not very high, but always that chance, especially when you're in a 2% risk, that is astronomically higher than any other 0% normal risk area. And then the wind today, you know, we had a lot of those wind reports seem to pan out as that MCS kind of grew upscale. MCS, by the way, stands for mesoscale convective system, and it became more of a line and bowed out. And when you get that bowing out, which I'll show you on radar, it is kind of a sign of increased wind potential, straight line wind potential. And then the hail, there was a significant hail risk. It didn't quite pan out, although I did see lots of hail reports that were out there. Definitely fairly large hail day, but not too untypical for Texas here, especially near the Del Rio area. They tend to see this kind of stuff pretty often. And if I take us over to the radar, the current radar, I also have overlaid tomorrow's, or for when this video is uploaded, today's day one's severe outlook. You can see that, especially well over here, that bowing that I was talking about. When you have this bowing out here, and you can get some stronger winds out ahead of that right in the front, and even sometimes some spin-up tornadoes on usually the top end of these bows. And as well, this is kind of a bowed out structure. It's a larger one, but that has just worked through Dallas as of the recording, and should be kind of winding down as we head into the nighttime hours, as instability is very meager in this area and is going to be kind of more confined to the coast, as this system here in the south also shifts further to the east. So that brings me to tomorrow's outlook here, which is really just confined to the coast. As really not much of Louisiana is going to be seeing this threat, but we will see the threat in Houston, maybe down to Corpus Christi and some of the towns here in between. It's really just going to be a really confined tornado threat here through Houston. Wind threat might last all the way through Louisiana. I will say that New Orleans might see just a little bit of an upgrade here as we move into tomorrow. And then just a tiny hail threat down in Texas here. Really nothing too significant. And on day 3, we have a little 5% risk over in South Florida. As that system that was in Texas continues to march on to the east, it will do so quite slowly and drop a lot of rain in the process. And I'll be getting to that, as the big story in today's video is going to be this rain, particularly in California and parts of the southeast. So moving on to that exact thing, we've got rain, lots and lots of rain. So today's excessive rainfall, this is going to end by the time this video is up. So marginal risk, just saturating these soils here. Tomorrow, we've got a more enhanced slight risk here for parts of Louisiana's coast, and a marginal stretching up all the way up into Kansas, as this system will be dropping some rain on the north side with some what is called isentropic lift out ahead of the system. And we're going to start to see an atmospheric river actually slide into California, a little Pineapple Express coming right off of Hawaii. That is how California gets most of its rain, especially in the winter months. And we're going to be seeing none other than that as we go into the upcoming days. And if I go to day 3 here, we can just see that Pineapple Express begins to take over. We've got a moderate risk of heavy rainfall, exceeding flash flood guidance as shown in those National Weather Service severe hazards map, with all that flooding coming up. Moderate risk here for the coastal California down to Los Angeles and up to about a little south of San Jose. Slight into the mountains and some of the Central Valley, particularly the northern half, where that initial surge of moisture is going to work into. But then by day 4, that moderate risk and slight risk move further south as the system slides further south and then kind of marches into the country. And the marginal risk goes even all the way up into Las Vegas. So perhaps some localized flash flooding here as well in some of the deserts that I know can't hold the water quite very well. But here in Los Angeles, all the way down to San Diego, definitely a pretty large risk of flash flooding and lots of rainfall incoming for that area. And day 5, we kind of continue the train. Slight risk for LA down to San Diego and now into Arizona as well, as that system starts to move inland and going to drop a lot of rainfall. And first, I do want to cover that rainfall here. So over the next 5 days, this is kind of what the GFS, the American model. You can follow the time up here. This is going to be for the next 5 days through Wednesday evening or Wednesday late afternoon, 4 p.m. Pacific time here. And this particular model is printing out, anywhere from 3 to 5 inches. Going to be higher in the mountains with that orographic lift, but even down to the coast, 2 to 3 inches in LA. This is going to be LA's point right here, 2.8. And then San Diego 3.4. Lots of rainfall, and this spreads all throughout California. And I know that last year they had incredible rains that got rid of the drought. Now I don't think there's too much of a drought, so it is kind of typical rainfall for this time of year, but definitely an event to consider, and perhaps some mudslides, flash flooding, and it's going to saturate the soils. And particularly, of course, where that orographic lift is here in the Sierra Nevadas, we're going to see some of the most amount of precip, and much of this is going to fall in terms of snow here. As I shifted over to the snowfall out of the exact same model here using the Kuchera method, which is probably most useful for mountain snows where the temperature is going to be cold enough. There's kind of a funny bullseye here in some of the California mountains, the southern SoCal mountains, a little bit up to maybe even 2 feet. I would say that this is going to be really localized at the highest elevations, because this is going to be a typical, maybe a little bit on the warmer end of a typical atmospheric river here. But really, the Sierra Nevadas are going to do well out of this, with many ski resorts picking up, Tahoe up here, picking up 50 to 70 inches, 90 inches throughout much of the highest ranges, even up to 100 in some of these locations, but a widespread 2 feet of snow throughout the entire region. And, some of these mountains closer to the coast here on the other side of the Central Valley might also see some snow out of this. Now, I do want to take a quick step back and show how the severe weather is going to pan out for tomorrow. The rain is going to be very important to watch, but the severe weather for tomorrow, here's how the storm progresses throughout the night. According to the NAM, this is going to be now the morning hours. This is going to be for 12 noon. So a little bit of a line mesoscale convective system moving through the Louisiana-Texas border here, as most of the main convection associated with tomorrow's threat is going to move through that Texas region earlier in the day, kind of in the morning hours. And then that shifts east. The instability won't make it too far north, but this does kind of bow out, so I would watch for maybe a bit of a higher wind threat, even places further north where there was less instability. And, the signature here is kind of telling me that we might see that wind threat pan out. The tornado threat is going to be very marginal, and the hail threat as well. But that wind threat, especially further to the east as far as basically east of Houston all the way to, I would say, New Orleans, could see that wind threat pan out pretty well, and they might extend that marginal risk further to the north. And then by about the time it gets to Mississippi, it dies out. So, of course, lots of rain on this northern side, kind of wrapping around this low pressure that moves into Texas here. And that's going to be all part of that flash flooding we've got. And this kind of stalls out a little bit, which is why that slight risk is in effect for this region for flash flooding. And the marginal extends all the way up into Kansas. And continuous rainfall, at least steady, in Mississippi and Alabama. So that's going to be the big threat further to the east. Severe weather a little further west, and lots of rain further to the east as we come to the end of this model run. And I just want to show it really quick on the large scale. This is going to show also some of the intermountain snows that we're going to be seeing. Some fairly chilly air is going to keep snows at pretty low elevations. And what's interesting here is we're getting this easterly flow around this low pressure here. So what's going on here is we've got a low here, and that's dragging air up from the Gulf like this. And that we've got a lot of moisture here with some saturation, but we've also got these mountains here, and this easterly flow is hitting the mountains, and we're getting some orographic lift straight above these mountains. And honestly, I would not be surprised if Wyoming does very well, especially the front range here of Wyoming. and parts of northern Colorado as well. I mean, all the way up into Montana and Idaho. Well, might do very well with snowfall, not to mention the California risk. So lots of these ski resorts are going to be very happy. I do see a little ice threat here. Isn't a big deal, but a little ice threat here in parts of Saskatchewan. As I push this forward again, we've got, kind of a narrow strip of snow, lots of snow in the Intermountain West, and as we see, as I'm pushing this forward, you see that first wave of moisture with this atmospheric river and that really deep low pressure, 983, moving into the California region. It's going to be bringing very heavy snows, a little bit higher elevation here. The cold air kind of escapes before this storm moves in, but some really heavy rains and heavy snows in the mountains here. Going to be pushing in, and then as I push this forward, I mean, it really lingers around the Los Angeles area, and that's where we're probably going to see our heaviest rainfalls, highest amounts of flash flooding. So that's that for that model. And if I push it forward, let's go on the GFS here. This is going to look a little further out. So kind of showing that same deal with the system. Very heavy snows, kind of a bit of a string of atmospheric moisture here, headed right for Los Angeles and San Diego. And it kind of lingers in the same area. And then that low pressure kind of, is going to linger around, probably shift inland just a little bit, very, very slowly. More moisture moving in to parts of the desert now in California, and then also into Arizona, as we saw that slight risk there. The Intermountain snows start to pick up once again, and then that system's going to move out into the plains. And now we're starting to get into some time frames where the models can't handle it very well. I'm now out to Thursday morning. I should have probably given some timestamps. The rain here in California is going to last from basically Sunday morning through all the way through, particularly in Southern California, all the way through really Wednesday morning, late night, early morning. But the northern half of California should end probably by about Monday evening. The rain and snow should taper off. But we see that system working through the Intermountain West on Wednesday into parts of Thursday as it starts to eject into the plains. And this is going to be also kind of preceding this leading very warm air into the eastern U.S., and I'm going to be showing that here on the model next. This system tries to work its way up into the Great Lakes, and that's going to be pulling up lots of warm air from the south with these counterclockwise spinning low pressure systems. And to bring that up well here, I'm going to pull up, this is going to be Tropical Tidbits, very, very good website. All of these websites I'm using, very good. Let me provide the link for them down in the description. This is the current GFS. This is showing 500 millibar heights and height anomalies. And basically wherever these reds and pinks are, that's going to be very, very warmer air. And the blues are going to be colder air. And you can basically follow the wind at this level, which is going to be way up in the atmosphere. Follow these black contours down. Such as this high pressure, the wind's going to want to go around this high and then down through this low, and then up and around this other high here in the east. So I'm going to call these areas of warmth high pressure, and the areas of cooler air, they're going to be lower pressure. Really lower heights. And then also I might secondhand refer to these as ridges, and then these are going to be troughs here. So as I push this forward, the GFS, the American model here, predicting that system here moving through the west, huge ridge kind of shifts further to the east, we've had an omega block actually, with the this low pressure here off the coast of the east and here off the west, with this kind of omega symbol here with the ridge up in Canada, very impressively strong. And that's going to be shifting to the east. It's going to lead to a nice warm up for maybe about 3 or 4 days here in all across the eastern coast and Appalachian Mountains here. And we might get a little system that first ejection here. This here is going to have some lift out ahead of it, maybe some very higher elevation snows, but mostly rain for this area as it's going to be quite warm. And and at this point in time, this model becomes less feasible to use, as it's going to be changing a lot as I move into, this is going to be the second week of February. So I would like to probably go to this model, which is basically, it's a better model that kind of averages out the ensemble, which is basically they take the original model, this is for the European model, they take the original model, they tweak it a whole bunch of times and produce all different solutions that are possible solutions, and then we get a mean of that to get a better idea of what's going on in the atmosphere. And particularly in the long term, it could kind of eliminate biases and over amplified solutions. So as I move this forward, this is going to be valid for Thursday evening. We see that really warm air pushing into the east. And then, I'm thinking, based on some other synoptic and tropical and longer-term pattern indicators, we might see a little flip here with this ridge building here into Alaska and British Columbia. We've got a Aleutian low. These are kind of the Aleutian Islands here, and we've got this lower pressure here. That's going to help build this ridge. We've got a little bit of a ridge here building into Greenland, and that is going to force a trough over the eastern U.S. rather than the west. And as you see, I pull this forward in time. The EPS here, this model, really has a nice trough into the east, ridging in the west, kind of a flip-flop from where we are now, and still a subtropical component. As this kind of low here shows that we've still got some stronger gradient here, and these winds are going to be coming out here, and we might start to get into a more active pattern, particularly for the eastern coast of the U.S. as we enter the second half of February. So we'll see how that goes. We've got a nice blocking pattern here in Greenland, and that's going to force stronger storms to move up the coast. And we've got a nice source of cold air straight out of the Arctic. So we'll see. This is a very good pattern for snow lovers in the northeastern and eastern U.S., but not looking too phenomenal, although not as bad as it could be out west into the mountains. But in the short term, the mountains here are going to be getting their incredible snows. So just to show that really quick on the Climate Prediction Center, here's what they're predicting for 6 to 10 days. Very much warmer in the east, cooler in the west. And for precipitation, really above average all over, perhaps southern Florida and parts of Maine. And New England might be a little below. 8 to 14 day, got the same thing, kind of maybe slightly less confidence on above average in the east as we start to shift into that second half of February, below average into the west. And then as we shift, and then also, by the way, precip might shut down over the west. We'll have to watch that as that ridging starts to build. But the precip across the south, that subtropical jet, is going to remain pretty impactful here. But as we shift to weeks 3 and 4, we kind of see that flip. West becomes warm, southeast especially becomes cooler, and up into the northeast as well, down from Arizona up to Maine, becomes higher chances of below normal than above. And this is followed by some much below average precip here through March 1st, actually, and then above average for the south as that subtropical jet remains strong. Although I would heed some caution here, especially with this. This is a very strong signal from CPC, and I am a little bit surprised to see that this isn't more above average here, particularly for the coastal regions, as I'm guessing that they believe that we're going to be behind these troughs and it's just going to remain cold and dry. But there is a chance for one of those storms to work their way up the coast and be close enough to produce some pretty decent precip in this region, and probably in that case in the form of snow. So we'll have to watch out. I would be a little bit cautious of what this is saying here. And as that ridge we saw that was building into British Columbia, you're going to keep the northwest below average, and that I do believe will remain true while this subtropical jet will keep going. So with that said, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I hope you got something out of it. Maybe learned something, learned a thing or two, got understood the forecast coming up, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel here. I'm going to be trying to making these videos more often than I have been, or than we have been. And we're going to be trying to send out some chasers whenever some big events come up, as we did do a snow chase fairly recently up in Tennessee. And, well, we're going to, springtime is coming. So, the more viewership we can get now, the better, as we do want to, be able to help as many people as possible. And reach out to as many people as possible. And the only way we can do that is if you guys like the video and subscribe and engage, comment, anything that I can do better. I'm very willing to improve on these forecasts, and that's what I'm here to do. So with that said, thank you all so much for watching, and have a fantastic Saturday.